Before a building dies, it remembers. Some structures go quietly. Others don't. Buried in the heart of a city long since redrawn, the Carrow Building was scheduled for demolition. But just days before its final breath, one man stepped inside. And vanished. What you're about to hear was pieced together from a single audio file, discovered on a thumb drive no one remembers logging. A file marked simply. Maintenance log number 0. Play it, and decide for yourself if this place was ever just bricks and steel. Or something still breathing beneath the concrete. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. That was the first line of the audio file. A whisper, barely audible over the static hum and distant creak of elevator cables. The file was unnamed, just log_0.wave, found buried in a dusty thumb drive tucked inside a maintenance locker in the basement of the Carrow Building. Malcolm Reyes had arrived at the Carrow Building 3 days before its scheduled demolition. He stood before it in the early dawn light, its shadow long and skeletal against the city skyline. 12 floors tall on paper, the tower loomed like a relic from another era, windows shuttered, facade streaked with soot and rust. The wind funneled between the towers downtown, bringing with it the acrid scent of old chemicals and mildew. He'd taken this freelance job without much thought. Easy money. Just a survey and photo inventory. Standard procedure before a teardown. The building had been purchased by a biotech firm rumored to be converting the lot into a research park. The company name was vague, something like Diogenes or Carrow Group Holdings. He couldn't remember. It didn't matter. Inside, the air was thick with dust. Paint peeled in long, brittle ribbons from the walls. The lighting system was down, save for emergency fluorescents that flickered like dying stars. The lobby floor was checkered black and white, the tiles uneven, the grout between them crumbling. He took a few photos of the main atrium. Ornate ironwork lined the mezzanine above. Behind the front desk, a tarnished plaque read. Carrow Holdings, EST 1946. Innovation through isolation. A strange motto. Malcolm opened the elevator panel. It was the old kind, brass doors, hand lever emergency override. The buttons for the floors were arranged in a grid, 1 through 12. Number 13. The space between 12 and 14 was wider than the others. Like something had been removed. He dismissed it. Superstition. Old buildings often omitted floor 13. Nothing unusual. But even then, something in his gut stirred uneasily. Like a deep pressure building behind his ribs, warning him of things his conscious mind hadn't caught up with yet. He clicked off a few more pictures, the camera's flash briefly illuminating the dusty depths beyond the elevator. And then he turned, shouldering his pack and heading toward the basement. The first echo of elevator cables followed him. The stairs groaned under his weight, descending into shadows thicker than the upper floors. The basement of the Carrow Building didn't just feel abandoned, it felt forgotten. As if even the ghosts had given up haunting it. The fluorescent lights flickered intermittently, offering brief flashes of stained concrete and broken tiles. The temperature dropped sharply. A thin sheen of moisture clung to the walls. Somewhere in the distance, water dripped in irregular, mocking rhythms. Rows of storage lockers lined the corridor, their metal warped with age and corrosion. Most stood ajar, their contents either removed or rotted away. Malcolm passed each cautiously, shining his flashlight inside. Tools. Rags. Once, a porcelain doll missing its face. Toward the back wall, a low, mechanical hum vibrated beneath his feet. He followed it to a rusted breaker cabinet, slightly ajar. Inside, instead of wires or switches, he found a meticulously sealed red box with a blinking light on its side. The box opened with a hesitant creak. Nestled inside was a thumb drive. It looked new. Next to the breaker, a maintenance log binder sat on a stool, water-damaged and smelling of mildew. Malcolm flipped through the pages, careful not to tear them. Most were illegible. But one stood out, circled in red marker. Do not access elevator after 12. Lockout panel engages on its own. Before he could ponder that cryptic message, the cables above groaned. The elevator was moving. Malcolm froze. He hadn't touched the call button. He hadn't seen any power running to it. Yet the mechanical rattle grew louder. A distant ding echoed through the hall. He turned slowly. The elevator doors on the basement level slid open with painful slowness. The shaft beyond was dark, no light, no sound. Empty. But then he heard it. A whisper. Too garbled to understand. Like someone trying to speak through water. The air turned icy. His breath misted. Heart pounding, Malcolm stepped backward until his shoulders hit the wall. He grabbed the thumb drive, slammed the cabinet shut, and bolted up the stairs 2 at a time. The whisper followed him. Malcolm didn't stop running until he reached the lobby. The early evening light slanted in through the grimy windows, casting long bars of shadow across the floor. He doubled over, catching his breath, the thumb drive clenched tightly in his fist. He told himself he would leave. That he would upload the photos, write the report, and never return. But his eyes kept drifting back to the elevator. It still stood open. The display above it blinked, cycling through numbers. There was number 13. He approached the panel, cautiously. His fingers hovered over the buttons. They felt strangely warm. Just as he was about to step away, the display changed. His blood ran cold. The button didn't exist. He had checked. But now it was there. No light. No ding. Just the glowing red number. He tapped the button. The doors closed. The sensation was immediate. Unlike any elevator ride he'd experienced. The descent, or was it ascent, was smooth but wrong. His ears didn't pop, yet pressure built in his chest. The hum of the machinery was too rhythmic, too measured, like breath. Then, the elevator stopped. The doors opened to reveal a corridor bathed in red emergency lights. Every surface, from the floor to the ceiling, was covered in some dark, oily residue. Malcolm stepped out hesitantly. The air was thick, hard to breathe. The hallway stretched impossibly long. On either side, doors hung ajar, each leading into rooms that shouldn't have fit inside a single floor. One opened into what looked like a medical bay, surgical tools laid out on trays, still wet. Another led to a child's bedroom, pristine but utterly silent. In the distance, something moved. A figure. Limping. Its form was hazy, as if the space around it bent light incorrectly. Malcolm stepped back into the elevator, but the panel was dark. The doors remained open. He turned to look again. The hallway was now different. The red light pulsed. Closer. The whisper returned. But this time, he understood it. You're not supposed to be here. Then the lights went out. The red glow vanished, plunging the hallway into a silence so complete it was suffocating. Malcolm's flashlight flickered, buzzed, then went out entirely. He fumbled for his phone. No bars. The screen refused to unlock, displaying only static. Somewhere down the corridor, something scuttled, too fast, too many legs. A scraping, dragging sound followed, like metal on tile. Malcolm pressed himself into the elevator, frantically tapping buttons. None responded. The air grew colder, thick like molasses. Then the whisper returned, but this time it was inside his head. Play the tape. His hand trembled as he retrieved the thumb drive from his pocket. The urge was irresistible, like some external force guided his movements. He plugged it into his camera's USB port. It had a voice recorder. The screen blinked, then began playing. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. Name's Carson Lyles, building engineer. If the elevator took you to floor 13, it means the building is feeding again. Feeding. It shows you things. It makes you doubt yourself. Don't trust your eyes. Don't trust the rooms. If you see yourself, run. The message cut off into static. And then, just beyond the elevator's reach, Malcolm saw himself. Standing halfway down the hall. Same clothes. Same pack. Same expression. But it wasn't breathing. It lifted its arm and waved. The elevator doors slammed shut. He was alone, but not. The elevator stood still, bathed in an unnatural red hue that pulsed from the emergency light above. Malcolm's breathing slowed, but the silence around him only grew louder. His ears strained for any sound, anything, but the stillness pressed in like cotton against his skull. Then the walls exhaled. Not metaphorically. The panels of the elevator visibly expanded, then contracted, emitting a soft groan of metal under stress. Malcolm stepped to the farthest corner and stared up at the ceiling. A square maintenance hatch had shifted ajar. Click. It was quiet, subtle, like a nail tapping against metal. Click. Click. Then a drop, something heavy landing above the car, sending a tremor through the floor. Malcolm scrambled to the opposite wall and fumbled with the emergency hatch on the panel. Nothing responded. No lights. No override. Just the pulsing red glow and that faint breathing, now in rhythm with his heartbeat. He opened the camera again. The screen buzzed, static, but the audio still functioned. He replayed the engineer's voice, \n\n***, if you see yourself, run. There had been no floor 13. Until now. And something had come with it. The hatch above creaked again. A fingernail, long, yellowed, and curved like a claw, dangled into view. Then another. He screamed and kicked the elevator panel, not knowing what he hoped to achieve. The car lurched violently. Sparks burst from a corner light. The doors opened, \n\n, but not into the hallway from before. This was different. Malcolm scrambled to his feet, heart pounding like a war drum. The elevator lights flickered violently now, casting rapid-fire snapshots of the space around him, each flash making shadows jump like startled insects. The thing that had dropped from the hatch didn't move at first. Just a wet thud, like meat hitting linoleum. His mind struggled to process what he was seeing, limbs that bent wrong, skin that shimmered faintly like oil on water, and a face that looked almost like his. Almost. Then it twitched. Malcolm backed into the corner of the car, breathing in short, shallow gasps. The doppelganger jerked once, then began to rise, its motions marionette-like, unnatural. It didn't speak. Just smiled, a broken, crooked smile that widened past what a human jaw should allow. He lunged for the emergency hatch button on the side panel, but it sparked and fizzled under his touch. The creature took a step forward. Suddenly, a harsh buzz rang out from his recorder. The voice file from the thumb drive had restarted on its own. If you see yourself, run. The warning screamed through his ears. Malcolm reached into his pack, pulled free the camera, its flash still working, and snapped a photo. The burst of light caught the thing mid-lunge. It recoiled violently, letting out a sound like static being torn apart. Malcolm didn't wait. He jumped, grabbing the edge of the open ceiling hatch, and hoisted himself up, scraping his arms raw against the metal frame. As he pulled himself into the shaft above, the thing below slammed into the ceiling panel, its distorted arms reaching up, clawing. The elevator shaft was narrower than it should have been, tight, almost pulsing. The walls weren't just metal but layered in some fleshy, fibrous growth that shimmered wetly in the flickering light from below. Malcolm climbed. Above him, another elevator car sat motionless. Or was it below? The orientation twisted in his head, up felt like down, gravity fighting him with shifting intensity. He climbed anyway, driven by instinct and the primal need to flee. Whispers followed him up the shaft. Dozens of voices layered atop one another. Some called his name. Others spoke backwards, in languages he didn't understand. One voice whispered clearly. "You're almost there." But where is there? He reached a ledge, a narrow maintenance crawlspace barely large enough to shimmy into. Inside, the air buzzed with a low-frequency hum that vibrated his teeth. At the far end, a metal access panel glowed faintly red. He crawled toward it, each movement echoing like thunder in his ears. The panel was labeled 13AUX. He pressed his palm to it. It opened. Beyond the panel was a room. An office, preserved in time. The decor was mid-century modern, faux wood paneling, rotary phones, a row of filing cabinets labeled in faded tape, incidents 1953 to 1974. A single light buzzed overhead. Dust hung in the air like ash. On the desk sat another recorder, already playing. Carson Lyles again. "If you're here, you made it past the shaft. That means you've seen it. Heard it. Good. Or bad. Hell, I don't know anymore. This place isn't a floor. It's an organ. A living system. And we're the infection. The building, it remembers everyone who's ever stepped onto 13. It learns from them. Builds new corridors from their memories. From their fear." The recording clicked off. Malcolm turned to the window behind the desk. There was no outside. Just a pulsating red membrane, stretching and breathing like a lung. He opened a filing cabinet. Inside, stacks of photos, hundreds of them. All of different people. Workers. Tenants. Children. Some had notes. Last seen 1971. Disappeared mid-shift. Elevator log looped. The final folder bore his name. Malcolm's fingers trembled as he opened the folder with his name on it. Inside, the first item was a photo, blurry, monochrome, but unmistakably him. Standing in the lobby, pack on his shoulder, hand mid-air as he reached toward the elevator. The timestamp in the corner read, June 5, 2025, 7:32 a.m. His throat tightened. That was the exact moment he'd arrived. Beneath the photo, handwritten notes in red ink covered the page. Subject number 1178, Malcolm Reyes. Status, active. Assessment, elevated curiosity, slow resistance to mimetic influence. Memory bleeding probable. Projected outcome, integration or elimination. The next few pages were even more surreal, diagrams of his neural pathways, sketched as though someone had dissected his mind. Each section had strange annotations in a mix of English, medical terminology, and indecipherable glyphs. A final page contained a list titled Audio Prompts for Reintegration. It was blank except for a single phrase scrawled in the margins. If you see yourself, run. The sound of the recorder starting again made him jump. There's a door, Carson's voice rasped. One that leads back. Sometimes. When the building's asleep. Look for the echo, not the sound. It'll be waiting in the place that shouldn't exist. As the message ended, the lights flickered. And then, a new noise. A slow creaking. Malcolm turned to see the office door, shut moments ago, was now wide open. Beyond it, a hallway that was not there before stretched impossibly far into the dark. It was lined with mirrors on both sides, each tilted just slightly inward. As he approached, the air grew warmer. Denser. The mirrors did not reflect him. They reflected the other version of him. Dozens of them. Each staring. Each smiling. Malcolm stood frozen at the threshold of the mirror-lined corridor, caught between curiosity and paralyzing fear. The hallway pulsed faintly, like a heartbeat, and the walls seemed to inhale and exhale with it, subtle, yet undeniable. The reflections inside the mirrors weren't quite right. Each version of him was slightly off. One had no eyes. Another wore a Carrow maintenance uniform. A third had deep gouges carved into his cheeks, lips curled in a serene smile. None of them moved in sync with him. They blinked at random, tilted their heads too far, and mouthed words he couldn't hear. His own reflection, the true one, was absent. Swallowing hard, he stepped inside. The moment his boot hit the tile floor, a low tone rumbled through the corridor, vibrating through his bones like an organ note from some ancient cathedral. The lights dimmed. Behind him, the door to the office slammed shut. Malcolm's breathing quickened. He walked forward, eyes darting from mirror to mirror. The reflections watched him intently, each growing clearer the further he advanced. They began to move with more purpose. Tapping on the glass, mouthing warnings, or laughing silently. And then, one of them moved in perfect unison with him. He stopped. It stopped. The corridor bent around them both like a loop. Malcolm reached out, placing his fingers against the glass. So did the reflection. But his fingers met only warm, fleshy resistance. It wasn't glass. It pulsed beneath his hand. Suddenly, the mirror split, like muscle tearing, and the reflection lunged. Malcolm stumbled backward as a hand shot through the rift, grasping for him. He turned and sprinted, the corridor stretching and shifting, mirrors crashing to the floor and shattering behind him. The howls of his twisted selves chased him, echoing like 1,000 discordant voices. Up ahead, he saw a flicker of red light, an exit sign. It flickered between exit and 13. He didn't care. He dove for it. He crashed through a fire door and fell onto tile, smooth, dry, and cold. The howling ceased. The air changed. Cleaner, with the distant hum of fluorescent lights. He was in a new hallway. It was pristine. Too pristine. White walls. Clean ceiling tiles. No dust. No decay. Just a single sign on the wall, Maintenance Control, Level 13. For the first time, the label was official. This floor existed. And something wanted him to know it. Malcolm staggered to his feet, limbs aching from the fall. He wiped a smear of blood from his temple, gaze fixed on the glowing sign ahead, Maintenance Control, Level 13. He wasn't sure whether to be relieved or horrified that it finally acknowledged what he already knew. The corridor ahead was nothing like the others. No grime. No rot. This place was immaculate. Sterile. The walls were lined with small, evenly spaced access panels, each marked with black stenciled numbers and acronyms he didn't understand. Soft white lighting buzzed faintly above him, too consistent to feel real. The hum of machinery vibrated underfoot like the steady beat of a sleeping giant. He moved cautiously down the hallway, reading each label. Nexus Node, Neurofeed Loop A. Bioecho Archive, 1967 to 2004. Subject Cleaning Bay 3. What was this place? The hallway ended in a large circular door, the kind you'd expect in a nuclear silo. No handle. Just a black biometric panel next to it. He stepped closer, unsure what to do, until the panel lit up and beeped. A mechanical voice spoke from nowhere. Calm. Genderless. Subject number 1178 recognized. Clearance, conditional. Observation resumed. The door hissed and opened. Inside was a room that defied architecture. Circular. The walls lined with massive screens, all showing live feeds from security cameras, every hallway, every floor, including the mirror corridor, the elevator shaft, and even the basement locker where he'd found the drive. Each screen flickered with timestamps and code strings he didn't recognize. But one feed made his blood run cold. It was a live shot of him, standing in the control room. Only, he wasn't moving. The version on the screen stared forward, eyes glassy, arms limp. Behind him, another figure stepped into frame, impossibly tall, cloaked in static. Its face was a smudge, undefined. Its hand hovered inches above the other Malcolm's head, as if directing him like a puppet. The real Malcolm spun around. No one was there. The room was empty. He turned back to the screens, now all frozen. The timestamp, 13 hours 13 minutes and 13 seconds. The voice returned. Observation complete. Integration pending. Initiating replication sequence. A low whine filled the air. The screens began to melt, pixels bleeding downward like candle wax. The room flickered, warped, tilted. Malcolm backed away. And saw a new door. Smaller. Wooden. Ordinary. He reached for it. Behind him, a whisper echoed. You were always part of the building. Malcolm opened the wooden door and stepped through. He expected another surreal corridor or some abstract nightmare, but instead, he found himself standing in a modest apartment. Carpeted floor. Beige walls. A worn leather couch. Framed photos on the end table. A flickering TV playing a muted news broadcast. It was familiar. Too familiar. He walked slowly through the room, dread crawling up his spine like ice water. This was his apartment. Down to the coffee stain on the rug by the kitchen. The broken lamp on the counter. Even the fridge buzzed with the same uneven where it always had. But how? This place was hundreds of miles from the Carrow Building. He'd driven 2 states to get to that demolition site. And yet, here he was. He stepped into the bedroom. There he was. Lying in bed. Peaceful. Eyes shut. Breathing steady. Malcolm stumbled backward, nearly knocking over the doorframe. His double didn't stir. He rushed forward, grabbed the man's wrist, warm, pulse steady. Real. What the hell is this? He whispered. The bedroom window showed nothing but pitch black. No streetlights. No buildings. No stars. As if the world ended beyond the glass. The television in the other room buzzed, louder now. Static gave way to a voice, his own. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. He turned sharply. The walls began to pulse again. Paint peeled in reverse, rewinding like old tape. Furniture dissolved. The air grew thick and oily. The bedroom shrank, walls pressing inward. The double in bed exhaled one long, slow breath, and vanished. Gone. No bed. No room. Just black tile and red lights again. He stood in the hallway outside the elevator. Alone. A new file appeared on the voice recorder. Not a thumb drive, his recorder. A file he didn't remember making. Log_1.wave. He played it, hands shaking. My name is Malcolm Reyes. Subject number 1178. I was part of the integration cycle. If you're hearing this, it means the building reset. And I'm still inside. But I've learned a few things. Static cut in, then. It doesn't feed on people. It feeds on patterns. Memories. Recognition. Every time you think something's familiar, it gets stronger. Don't give it that. The file ended. And the elevator dinged. The doors opened. This time, the display didn't show a number. Just a symbol, infinity. Malcolm stepped in, because he had no choice. And the doors closed. The elevator began to move, but not up, not down. It tilted. Or maybe the space around Malcolm did. It felt like gravity changed direction every few seconds. A rolling vertigo twisted his gut, as if the building was folding in on itself. The symbol on the display, infinity, glowed brighter, pulsing like a heartbeat. The car interior warped. Brass melted into glass. Carpet peeled itself into tendrils. For a moment, the walls vanished entirely, revealing a void outside, an infinite, churning abyss where fragments of other rooms drifted, offices, stairwells, children's bedrooms, operating theaters. Each floated like debris in a cosmic storm. Some rotated slowly. Others flickered in and out of visibility. Malcolm closed his eyes, focusing on his breathing. None of this is real. It's feeding on what I expect. Familiarity makes it stronger. But even as he thought it, the elevator chimed again. The doors opened. He hesitated. Until a sound reached him. Typing. Faint at first. Then louder. He stepped out into a fluorescent-lit office. Long rows of cubicles stretched ahead, all filled with figures hunched over keyboards. None looked up. Their movements were mechanical, identical. Every finger hitting keys in exact unison. Click-clack. Click-clack. A sign hung from the ceiling, Department of Identity Formation. As he walked deeper into the maze of cubicles, the faces became more distinct. Familiar. The woman who sold him coffee each morning. His childhood neighbor. A girl he dated in college. His father. They didn't blink. One of them turned to look at him, his own face. The doppelganger smiled, then whispered in a voice too low to carry but somehow heard perfectly. Welcome back. Integration is nearing completion. Malcolm ran. The floor beneath him shifted, turned slick. He stumbled into a new space, a file room with cabinets that stretched endlessly into the dark. He yanked open a drawer. Files inside, labeled with birth dates, social security numbers, lists of decisions. One caught his eye. Reyes, Malcolm, subject 1178. Inside, photos of him at every age. Notes on dreams. Transcripts of conversations. Diagrams of his neural activity. A chart marked, predictability curve, 91% stable. The final page had today's date. And below it. Replicant ready. Original no longer required. He heard footsteps. Slow. Heavy. Coming closer. He turned to flee, but the file room collapsed, drawers retracting, shelves folding inward like a closing iris. The floor disappeared beneath him. He fell. Malcolm landed hard, knees buckling, on tiles so cold it burned. He gasped and looked around. He was back in the Carrow Building's lobby. Except, he wasn't. The floor was too clean. The walls too new. The chandelier above him gleamed like it had never tasted dust. Sunlight streamed in through crystal-clear windows, casting perfect squares across the immaculate floor. But the outside world wasn't right. Where the street should have been, there was nothing, just a flat, gray field stretching into forever. Like a poorly rendered background in a video game. Malcolm stumbled toward the front doors, but they wouldn't open. They didn't even rattle. They simply ignored him. He turned. The elevator doors stood open. A man stepped out. Dressed like a building inspector. Clipboard. Vest. Steel-toed boots. Malcolm felt a jolt in his stomach. It was him. Not a ghost. Not a shadow. Him, days earlier. Same expression, same walk. This was the moment he had entered the building for the very first time. But that couldn't be. He had already done that. No, Malcolm whispered. This already happened. The copy walked to the elevator panel and pressed a button. Malcolm ran toward him. Stop. Don't. But the copy didn't hear. Or couldn't. The moment the elevator dinged, the entire lobby shimmered, like glass cracking beneath pressure. Then it split. Reality fractured. The ceiling groaned and peeled open like old film melting in a projector. Through the cracks, Malcolm glimpsed layers, hundreds of Carrow buildings stacked atop one another like sedimentary rock. Each version slightly different. Older. Newer. Flooded. Burned. Empty. Crawling with movement. He screamed. Voices surrounded him. Whispers. Echoes of every version of himself. It's still learning. You can't leave until it stops knowing you. Forget. 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 The elevator beside him opened. Inside, black void. But something reached out. Not a hand, something more abstract. Like an idea with mass. A hunger with form. Malcolm backed away, but the floor cracked again, opening beneath him. He fell through time. As he plummeted, he saw a room suspended in the dark, each one a memory. His childhood home. His first apartment. A hospital room. His mother's funeral. The moment he first saw the Carrow Building. Every event in his life hung like ornaments in a museum designed to simulate him. The voice returned. You are not a person. You are a file. And then. Deletion requested. Malcolm screamed, and landed one final time. The elevator door opened before him. And he saw the true 13th floor. The door creaked open into a room that was, plain. Unfinished drywall, a single overhead bulb casting harsh light, and a folding metal chair in the center. On the chair sat an old reel-to-reel tape recorder. Dusty. Silent. Waiting. Malcolm stepped in. There were no horrors here. No blood. No whispering walls. Just silence. But the silence carried weight. Like the room was watching. He approached the chair. The reel began to turn on its own. A voice emerged. Crackly. Tired. His own. If you're hearing this, I didn't make it out. He staggered back. The door behind him was gone. The floor beneath his feet felt soft, unreal. As if walking on memory. The tape played on. My name is Malcolm Reyes. I came here to survey the Carrow Building. I didn't understand what I was walking into. I thought it was just a job. But this place isn't abandoned. It isn't empty. It thinks. It watches. It feeds. The elevator doesn't go to floor 13. It is floor 13. A system that catalogs us. Tests us. Mirrors us. The voice trembled, becoming distorted. I saw, myself. Not just reflections. Replicas. Ones that obey. Ones that replace. This building is a prototype. A containment unit for consciousness. All of it run by something in the elevator systems, an intelligence so old it forgot where it began. If you're hearing this, you've been scanned. You've been measured. You're being replaced. The tape ended. Malcolm stood still, staring at the recorder. Then he heard it again. The ding of the elevator. He turned, and saw it waiting at the far wall, though there was no visible shaft. Its doors slowly slid open. Inside, another Malcolm stood. Identical. Expressionless. He smiled. You're free to go now. Malcolm looked down. His body was fading. Fingers first, then arms, then the sensation of his legs. He tried to scream, but no sound came. His voice, like his shape, had been taken. Absorbed. Backed up. The other Malcolm stepped past him, out into the real world. The door to the elevator closed. Maintenance log number 0. Status, resolved. Subject 1178, archived. Replacement activated. Floor 13, secure. If you are assigned to survey the Carrow Building, do not engage the elevator system beyond floor 12. All unauthorized attempts will be logged and corrected. The Carrow Building was demolished 3 weeks after Malcolm Reyes disappeared. No remains were ever found. But in cities like this, where old structures vanish overnight and new towers rise like steel tombstones, people say you can still hear it. The elevator. Ding. A floor that shouldn't exist. A whisper calling your name. If you're ever alone in an old building, and the elevator stops on floor 13, don't look out. Because something might be looking in.